What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HAWGsports.com. And are you doing something different with your hair? Or you look fantastic. Oh, yeah. Well, of course. Now I see the sparkle in your eye. It's game week. Well, you're in luck because we're going to talk all about Arkansas and Western Carolina today. Danny West is going to hop on and talk some recruiting. Andrew Ellis is going to join us also to talk a little bit about Razorback football as well. All that and more on today's episode of Hog Sports Live. Before we get started, of course, I want to remind you there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. You can always tune in on Facebook Live, also available on YouTube. Follow both of those pages. Hit the like button or the thumbs up button, whatever they call it, on both of those channels if you haven't done so already. And take a moment also to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so. Subscribe, hit the notifications bell so you're alerted anytime we upload new videos. Just take a moment and do it right now. Most people that watch the videos aren't even subscribed. Just real quick, I'll wait for you. Okay, appreciate that. I really do. I really do appreciate that. We're also available on Apple Podcasts. If you haven't taken a moment to throw us a 5-star review, we'd certainly love to have that from you as well. 5-star review, subscribe, all of those kind of things. Let other people know about the show. If they don't know already, ask them. Ask them if they know. Hey, if you watched Hog Sports Live, you might want to check it out. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to that. It's important. It's important for us to get our message out there, and you guys are the best way to help us do that. Get your questions in if you got some, because we're going to get to those too if we have time. Hopefully we will. But first, what do we want to talk about? The depth chart that was released. The game has been moved to noon. Okay, first of all, it was a 3 o'clock game. They have moved it to noon. That basically is about humidity. Now, the game is on SEC Network Plus. I'll let you guys know how to access the game. I'll probably put something up here Thursday. But if you have SEC Network, like you can get it on your regular channel guide, then you will be able to access SEC Network Plus to watch the game. And I'll put together a video for you all to see that. They put the depth chart out. There's a lot of oars on this one. I could probably eliminate a lot of those for you. I'll start at wide receiver. There's 3 transfers on offense, 7 on defense. Possibly 7, because there are a lot of oars on this depth chart. But you got Andrew Armstrong, Isaac Teslaw. They're going to start. They've got Isaiah Satania or Jaden Wilson starting in the slot. It's going to be Isaiah Satania, unless they come out with some kind of weird formation or maybe some special play or something for Jaden Wilson. But for all intents and purposes, the starter is going to be Isaiah Satania. They've got Andrew Chamblee and Devon Manuel listed as or at left tackle. You know, Manuel's been banged up a little bit. He's had a couple of different issues that have slowed him these last couple of weeks, and Chamblee has stepped in nicely. Now, when both of these guys are healthy, it's going to be Devon Manuel. They really like what Chamblee's done. Could be like a reward for everything that you've done in the meantime. Still think Chamblee's about a year away before you say, this is a guy for us. You know, I think he's on that trajectory, on that path, but kind of like Manuel too last year. He wasn't quite ready to step into that. But, you know, for all intents and purposes, as we get through the season, Devon Manuel is your starting left tackle. They've got 5 tight ends listed here. Luke has as the starter, Francis Sherman, and then it's backs, Gums, or Washington. So a lot of oars on offense. Defense, the one that I thought was pretty interesting is Chris Paul or Jaheim Thomas. Paul's been banged up a little bit. I think, and they've got Jordan Crook locked in as a starter at the other spot. I think what we'll end up seeing when they're both healthy is Chris Paul and Jaheim Thomas. Antonio Greer's been banged up. It's unfortunate. Some, backups here and there, like Ladarius Bishop or Keon Stewart. They got Keon Stewart listed as an or, as a third team on 2 different spots. I think he'll end up being a second-team guy for him. Jaden Johnson is listed as an or with Hudson Clark. Jaden Johnson been starting a lot here lately, but that's good to see him, battling there, because they need some competition at that spot. And, Hudson Clark, probably the most underappreciated Razorback on the team, and Jaden Johnson kind of took a step back last year. Special teams, pretty much everything in order. I was surprised not to see Jalen Braxton as an option, maybe not a starter on kickoff return or punt return, because they have been talking about him a lot, but it's Isaiah Satania in both of those roles. Maybe there's an opportunity for him to get like an all-SEC nod or something as a return guy. That would be kind of cool, since he is doing both. It's been a while since Arkansas had somebody doing both. You guys know my stance on kickoff returns, though. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see anybody. Dating back to 2010, every rule that they've made for kickoff return Every rule that they've made has been to try to get you to stop doing it, you know. I think one of the interesting things about this defense is, are they going to be improved from last year? And to me, I don't think you can say, are they going to be improved from last year? Because if this defense stinks this year, it's going to be on their own merit. It's not going to be because they also stunk last year and it just bled over. Because everything's so different. I mentioned, probably 7 different starters out of the transfer portal on this defense. Total. I think, I think I'm including McLaughlin and Landon Jackson. But really, like, if you look at last year's defense, like, who are you pulling back from last year? Landon Jackson, who started 7 games for him, about 236 pounds. Now he's 283. Dwight McLaughlin, who is a preseason All-SEC pick. I think he got All-SEC by coaches or something last year also. So those 2 guys. And then, a lot of the other pieces, I think you're taking kind of the best pieces that you had from last year's defense. Obviously, you lose Drew Sanders. That's going to hurt. But, you bring in a lot of guys. You got Hudson Clark from last year's defense, who wasn't near the biggest problem that they had in the secondary. They had a lot of problems in the secondary. It wasn't just because of Hudson Clark, even though he catches most of the flack for it for some reason. Defensive line, you've totally retooled so much on the defensive line, just the overall depth that you're bringing in. I think if this defense stinks, it'll be based on their own merit. New defensive coordinator, new passing game coordinator, new secondary coach. The only guy back on the defense from a coaching standpoint is the only position group where they needed a little continuity, and that's defensive line. There are redshirt seniors on this defense, okay, on this defensive line, who are, for the first time in their Razorback careers, going to be coached by the same guy in back-to-back years. That's insane. So actually needed a little bit of continuity on the defensive line and got that. Should be a much faster defense also. Should be a lot faster. Ozarks Go is really fast. They just installed multi-gig for me. So I had the Gigabit internet, which is lightning fast. Like for most applications, most people, Gigabit internet is going to feel like instantaneous. If you're like me and you use internet everywhere and, you've got, family members using it, you're streaming stuff all the time. My security system uses a lot of Wi-Fi stuff. Obviously, I want super fast speeds on this. Then I use the multi-gig, which they recently installed. I thought Gigabit was pretty fast, and it is. It is fast. But multi-gig is instant. Like, not even... I thought I had instant, and this is instant. Like the bandwidth also. Everything is going to work with Gigabit. You can reach out to those guys at 479-684-4900, or you can go to ozarksgo.net/hawg, that's HAWG, and find out more about Ozarks Go Internet. I think it's a great service. I've been using these guys for 2 years. Before they reached out to me about advertising on the site, I was already using them. I used to always say I've never had an outage, and just transparency, I did have an outage. Now, they sent me about 30 different things, it felt like, but a lot of things saying, hey, we're going to have an outage. This is scheduled between, like midnight and 1 o'clock or something like that. But they let me know. I knew well and clear that, I wasn't getting on the internet at midnight that night. So, but other than that, I've had 100% uptime, never had a problem. 2 of the nicest guys you ever meet came and installed the multi-gig for me. Just never had a problem. Local company also. Local company, not going to jack up your rates in year 2, bring you on some discounted rate. Year 2 comes around and they just skyrocket. You can get the same rate. You can get the same rate the next year. So local company, you got a problem, you're going to talk to somebody from around here also, somebody who probably wants to talk to you about Razorbacks if you got some time too. So check out our friends at Ozarks Go for your internet. Best internet service I've had, and that's not me just saying that. That's the truth. All right, let's get to Danny. Y'all want to talk some recruiting? Arkansas had a couple of commitments from class of 2026 kids, and not just guys, but like studs, like guys that have a ton of options. For those of you who don't follow Danny West, you can follow him at Danny West 24/7. He's the HawgSports recruiting analyst, been at this for a number of years now, and really does it better than anybody in the country, in my opinion. Danny, how you doing, brother?
Doing great, man. What's going on?
Well, I was just talking about the value of Ozarks Go Internet and how I just recently got the multi-gig. It's fantastic. I don't know what you're working with, Danny, but if it's in your area, Northwest Arkansas generally, they're pushing out a little bit to Rogers and other areas and stuff. But it's a great service. Danny, I want to jump in with recruiting with you. Not sure what you got going on over there, but you're rattling around.
Sorry about that. Bumped into something.
Let's start with the last one. Or do you want to start with the first one? You want to start with Lockett or McWhorter?
We can start with Tay.
Let's go with Tay Lockett,
I thought
5'11", 175 athlete. I don't know if we did. I don't know if we caught Tay last week or not. I don't know if we did. Let's go ahead and do it anyway.
Anyway, yeah, we can talk about Tay. Big time 2026. Now, I know out there, Trey. I've seen it quite a few times over the last week or so. You know, they picked up 2 big-time 2026 commitments, and I see fans go, well, it's hard to get excited. Well, they could have gone to Georgia and USC, you know?
You have no reason. You wouldn't even be talking whether or not you should be getting excited.
Wouldn't even be talking about them. So, I mean, you know how it is with certain fans, man. You just can't please them. But I thought it's just been an incredible start. And, hey, I'll be the first to tell you, I should know I've seen it quite a few times. I know there's a chance that these guys may not make it to signing day with Arkansas, but I think there's a lot of reasons for both of them, to be optimistic about both of them and Arkansas's chances at keeping them because obviously with Tay, his mother being from the state, being a Valonia product herself and still having so much family right there around Little Rock, Cabot, Conway area. Man, family ties and, those family connections helped Arkansas get him on campus twice this past spring. So, with that one, I think the family ties give you a shot to see this thing go the distance with Tay. But, man, the kid could have gone to USC, Oregon. Those places are a lot closer to home. He could have gone to Georgia, Florida State, could have flew right over you too. So
Miami, Michigan, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Oregon, Tennessee, Texas A&M. I mean, this is a list for a 2026 kid to have Auburn. I mean, it's impressive.
Yeah. And, as far as a player, we call him an athlete. Looking at him as a DB, probably going to grow into a safety spot at some point. So, that's another angle that we don't talk so much about, but there's a lot of firsts here. How many times do you see Arkansas go to California? I think Blake Johnson, the punter, was the last one back in 2014, 15, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
I feel like Kiro was at a junior college in California.
Kiro was.
But he's from Baltimore.
Bass was. Sebastian Tretola was for a bit there. You could go back. Wasn't Darius Vanette at one point? Was he not a Cali,
might have been.
Cali guy? I think he went to. Anyway, few and far between either way. They've missed on some Cali guys, JUCO too. But just kind of cool. I think somebody asked him a couple of weeks ago. Asked Coach Pittman, are you planning on trying to recruit California? And lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, he ends up with a massive commitment.
Yeah. Massive.
Again, I know it's 2026, but. Heck yeah, man! That was a big time pickup for Arkansas, and then of course we can transition.
Well, Danny, I mean, it's weird that you'd get back to back guys out of the 26th. I mean, that's jumping so far ahead. But the next guy's an animal.
Yeah, he is. Did you watch his film yesterday? Somebody posted it. Bear McWhorter.
Yeah,
I've seen him enough to know. I've watched him for 2 years now, so it really wasn't surprising to me. Saw him again at camp this past summer, and again. Talking about a situation where, he's a long way out and he's a long way from home, being from Cartersville, Georgia, Cass High School. Mm-hmm. But here's another case where you're getting him to campus super early. You take a step back and kind of ask yourself, why are we seeing this now? I think there's a combination of two things specifically. First of all, those early visits, you deal with some of that. Obviously, this kid started going to camp under Coach Pitt, I want to say over at Georgia. And 2 years ago, going into his freshman year, I think a lot of people recall Bear, his family anyway, paid for a billboard right there in Northwest Arkansas with his picture up there and said, Coach Pittman, I want an Arkansas offer.
I didn't even put that together, Danny. I didn't know that. I didn't remember that was him. Okay.
That's the kid. So here we are a little over 2 years later, and they've got him, and I think back to last month, his sister on Twitter put out a tweet and said, hey, it's time for me to submit my application for my first college. And who did she tag? Sam Pittman in Arkansas, and that's where she at least wants to apply. I'm not going to speak for the young lady. I don't know her plans, but that stood out to me at the time. About a month ago when she tweeted that, I said, hey, that's notable. Sister might be going to Arkansas. Keep an eye on old Bear. I think he's been up here 5 or 6 times, Trey, and that's the key, man. You got to get them on campus early. Get to them before the big bright lights of Georgia and Bama and USC get to them. You know what I mean? Make them feel like a priority. Make them feel like they are the guy that you want to build the class around. And I think there's a lot of beauty in that, man, when you've got a potential, I'm not going to put stars on it, but a really, really good in-state quarterback right here in the state, and Kane Archer for that same class. I think when you can go out of state and get it started with some big-time star-studded guys, I think it helps your case so much with the in-state guys just from a perception deal. I think that really builds a lot of momentum. And right there at Greenwood too, Cody Taylor he's got Ole Miss, Kentucky offensive lineman there. So you think about Jackson Cantwell from Nixa, Missouri, a big time offensive lineman. I think he's number 6 in the country already, Trey, for 2026. The list goes on and on. They've had some really good ones on campus already. Colton Yarborough came back to campus on July 29th. Shavar Young, Tyreek King, a couple of kids out of Tennessee who have visited. There's a lot of names there that are probably going to be 4 and 5. I'm not going to say 5, but at least 4-star types. And man, that's we'll see what the next 2 years holds, but that's a pretty good starting position right there. So I say all that to say, just enjoy it while you've got it. That publicity is really good for you, and I think it can carry over to other kids too. I had another kid. I'll throw this in there. I had a kid yesterday who's got a bunch of offers. I don't want to misspeak here, but he told me he's thinking about Arkansas 2026. He's seen the first couple of commitments, and he admitted, he said, hey, I've got to admit, it's got me thinking a little bit. So, hey, they've got some momentum in that class, and I think it's a really good start for them.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. I saw the tweet. It looked like a scratching your chin kind of thing in response to one of the commitments.
I'm not aware of that, but that could be him. If I haven't seen the tweet, it could be.
So Danny West joining us again. You can follow him at Danny West 24/7. Danny is the HawgSports recruiting analyst. Most of his content is VIP, so you do need a VIP subscription. HawgSports is 30% off, or just $1 right now for your first month at HAWGsports.com. Just to give people an idea a little bit about these last 2 commitments. Tay Lockett, there was an article from, I believe it was Greg Biggins, who does more of the recruiting stuff out in Pacific area, Pacific Coast. But he was one of like 5 guys that just missed the initial top 100 ranking for the class of 2026. So they've only ranked 100 guys for the class of 2026, obviously, because it's so far out. Bear McWhorter has offers from, obviously, Arkansas, but Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Texas. I mean, you keep going and going. I mean, this guy has a big-time offer list too. So, Danny, we're coming up on Western Carolina. The game's Saturday. It's noon. It's a tricky deal with recruiting for this game because you can bring recruits in, but you can't have any kind of communication with them. Obviously, you're not showing them around campus or anything. So, what do you know about this weekend's visitors?
I wouldn't expect a whole heck of a lot. I was reading this morning, I think the article was last year, maybe even 2 years ago, but the Georgia guys, our good friends over in Athens, they were interviewing Kirby Smart a couple of years ago about this topic. I think they played, it was probably the Florida game in Jacksonville is what it was. And somebody asked him about it. He's, he didn't hold back. He was like, I think it's stupid. What's the point? We can just leave a ticket at the gate for them. We can't talk to them. Can't have anybody out there to hand them the ticket. Nothing. I mean, just give them a game ticket. That's the extent of it. So, man, they've got a whole heck of a lot more to worry about nowadays with NIL and transfer and all of that. But at some point, man, I'd like to see them address that, which, of course, I think a lot of teams are starting to get away from neutral sites and playing off campus just for money reasons. But so it could just kind of take care of itself. But
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. There's got to be something they can do.
You know what I think is also stupid,
to
Danny?
spice it up, so.
Like with you talk about things that, are stupid in college football, like obviously, not being able to really host recruits and stuff for that game and talk to them. Did you watch the Week 0 games? Did you watch any?
Yeah, I watched a few.
What a crappy slate of games.
FIU.
Crappy.
Yeah, it was awful.
Like, I mean, if I understand, like having, like, hey, getting your mouth watered for college football. Here's a taste with the Week 0 games, but give us some games. I mean, those games were, very close to dropping an S word, but they were.
You wouldn't do that.
They were.
You wouldn't.
I've come close plenty of times. But I mean, like, I'm sitting there waiting, like, for Vanderbilt and Hawaii, like it's the national championship game, and then it gets weather delayed, and it's just like, geez. I mean, it felt like watching a high school game with the stadium, the whole environment, and everything. Just a terrible. Like, I understand having Week 0. Let's get some quality games there. Just ridiculous slate. Just terrible slate of games.
You know what would happen then, though, Trey? All those teams that we're hating on right now, they would move up to week -1, I guess, because they take that week as their week. They never get seen, so I think they all try to start.
Sure. Notre
Dame being an outlier, obviously. It was a different deal playing in Dublin, wherever the world it was.
Yeah, and here it was delayed.
Most of those teams,
I couldn't even watch
stupid,
it. I was like trying to figure out what the game was, and I was like, I saw the score, and then it comes on at 3:30 or something.
I couldn't even find USC. Could you?
I never found
television.
Do better.
I was looking for them.
Like, what kind of soft opening is that? Soft opening is my new term this year.
Yeah, I don't know what the fix is there, but as far as recruiting, getting back to it for Little Rock, I'm not expecting a whole lot. Now I'm sure they're going to have some guys show up. Haven't really gotten a whole lot of names yet, to be honest with you, and I'm not expecting a great list. But that's the extent of it, man. You can just bring them and tell them to go to will call, I guess, pick up their ticket. But
go to will call, have fun. Talk to you later.
At least they won't be as hot.
Yeah. All right, Danny. Anything else to add?
12 o'clock. No, that's it, buddy. I think next week we should start seeing some visitors, but shaping up like that, the one in 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks, BYU coming to town, I think that's going to end up being a pretty good one for them as far as recruits on campus. So should be a little bit better next week, and then BYU, they ought to have a pretty good turnout.
Yep. All right, brother. Appreciate you.
You got it, man. See you.
All right, everybody. That's Danny West. Again, follow Danny at Danny West 24/7. You need a VIP subscription to read his content. Earlier today, I was at the Sam Pittman press conference and thought I'd play a little bit of it for you. He's talking just a little bit about recruiting and transfer portal and managing things. Just a few other things. Obviously, the game this weekend is at noon, so keep that in mind. But here's a couple of the highlights from Sam Pittman today.
I do. I mean, because in all honesty, we really don't know who's going to run out with the ones. If they're we know they're going to play a lot of ball for us. But in all honesty, we haven't decided who's going to run out there. Now, we've decided what positions and all that, but there's a few of them that either via injury are they going to be back in time for Saturday's game? Maybe it is, with moving some kids, like Snacks has moved from hog to corner to, where Jaden Johnson and Hudson Clark are. Very, very close battle right there. So we really don't know today exactly in some of those positions who we're going to run out there with the ones yet. But we know that group that if they're an we trust them, and they're going to play a lot of football. Who runs out there first probably in most cases has been decided, not in all.
Within a year of you becoming a head coach here, you had three things happen. COVID, transfer portal, NIL all hit. Yeah. And I'm just wondering, how did you deal with all that, as a head coach, when all three of those hit you in one short span and there's no booklet on how to get prepared for that kind of stuff?
I rely on my staff, until we talk it out. I'm not quick with decisions. I try to take my time and think about it. Always it's what's best for the kids. But my biggest concern in all that was separation of the team. NIL was a separation of the team. Portal, to be honest with you, was a separation of the team. COVID, not necessarily, but it did separate you from the team. So, culture to me is a big thing, and the two hottest topics of separating the team, the culture, is NIL and certainly the portal. So I've changed. I've made mistakes. I've changed in the fact that, we tell the kids we don't want anybody to go in the portal. And, before we just never really addressed it until they came into my office. But now, if we've signed them, we don't want them to leave. And so I think that's helped our culture a little bit. The NIL is certainly something that, if somebody making this much money and somebody else isn't, certainly there's a possibility of separation. But we don't seem to have too big of a problem with it right now.
You mentioned your transfer portal numbers going into the season and how you felt like you really hit on transfer portal guys. Do you have any worries that when you add that many that there could be issues in the locker room or just anything like that when you're dealing with that many?
Yeah, I do, except for at our place, they have to earn everything they get. They're just a part of the team, and they're like everybody else. They, I think not that Jaden Hazelwood didn't deserve to start for us. He didn't earn the right to start the first day of spring practice. I made a mistake. So I try to learn from those things, and I think as long as the kids are earning what they get, I think the entire team's fine with it. But I made that mistake, and I love Hazelwood. It's not his fault. We put him with the ones the first day, and that was a mistake.
Well, Sam Pittman there. By the way, I was looking at the Bet Saracen app during that break, and Arkansas, they've already got the game moved to noon on the app, but Arkansas is a 34.5-point favorite still to take Western Carolina. Let me know in the comments, what do you like? You like Arkansas on that one? That's 5 touchdowns over Western Carolina. Another game I noticed at 11 o'clock, this may be the big in-state game, Arkansas State versus undeserving number 20 Oklahoma. Arkansas State is plus 35.5 there also. So Oklahoma favored by over 5 touchdowns against Arkansas State. It's a couple of notable in-state games. I'm not really sure how I'm going to travel now because I was planning on driving like day of, but now it means I have to, wake up super early and, travel day of. So I may end up going Friday now down to Little Rock for the game. So I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I got some time to decide, I guess. All right. Where we want to go? You guys want to talk to Andrew Ellis? We haven't had Andrew on in a while. Andrew has been grinding like crazy covering fall camp. He's been there every day just like I have, watching all the press conferences. He's got a good a feel for this team as anybody right now. Andrew, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Trey Biddy. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's game week. There's a twinkle in my eye. I feel good. How about you?
I'm really excited to have real things to talk about and not just kind of picking what we can from a 20-minute practice and trying to read between the lines of what coaches say. I'm ready to have real actual stats, real actual footage, real actual everything to take in and analyze and all that. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you get to the point, we come storming out of the gates with fall camp practice. Everything's, new. There's new faces and stuff. And then, man, by the end of it, you've written every story 3 times, in a different kind of way with different quotes and stuff. So we need some different kind of content to discuss. What are you looking forward to most seeing Saturday? Even though it's not a big-name opponent, and Arkansas hasn't – it's not like Arkansas set the world on fire last year against, as Sam Pittman says, the non-logo teams. But what are you looking forward to most in this opener, aside from having generally some fresh content?
Yeah, I think for me it just comes down to just how many newcomers there are on each side of the ball that are not only just going to be making their debuts, but how many newcomers make up key parts of the offense and defense. I mean, you just look at the depth chart today. I mean, just about half of the two deep is either a young guy or a transfer or just someone who hasn't played a ton. And so, or at least not at Arkansas. And so it's going to be really interesting to just see what all these guys look like in a Razorback uniform. I'm not expecting the most ruckus atmosphere of all time there in Little Rock, and
No.
I don't think Arkansas is either.
Especially with the time change.
Yeah, especially with the time change, and I think part of with that time change, people were upset about it. They wanted to be night. I don't think it was going to be this awesome atmosphere, even if it was at night. So I don't think there was really any incentive to move it back unless you're just really, really wanting to avoid the heat. But I thought it was interesting, the whole conversation around that and how many people were upset about it. I think they just want to get this over with as quickly as they can, get back in Fayetteville and get onto the real show. I don't think there's going to be too much drama involved in the actual game. I was a little surprised when I saw how well Western Carolina played on offense last year. I really did not expect to see some of those numbers that I saw when I was looking at it. But, ultimately I think this is a take care of business game. I don't expect there to be anything weird going on in terms of Arkansas needing to, play their starters the entire 4 quarters and really grind it out like they did with Missouri State last year. I think this is a little bit different of a situation, different team. And I just think Arkansas, there shouldn't be any drama. And I want to see Arkansas just look crisp, have the newcomers make their first impressions, and just have a simple, easy day.
Yeah, kind of what I've outlined for it, Andrew, is just kind of like come out, go to work, just march down the field up and down, stop them over and over again, and then you go into the halftime and you kind of treat it like, okay, this is how we want to make sure we come out at halftime for every game, almost like a rehearsal. And you send the starters out for 1 or 2 series, let them get a touchdown, and then hopefully get a lot of young guys some action. Andrew, you went 8-4, 4-4 in conference. We did our predictions this week. You went 8-4, 4-4 in conference. I also went 8-4, 4-4 in conference. Curtis went 8-4, 4-4 in conference. Danny West is the only one. He's the darling of Razorback fans today with a 9-3, 5-3 prediction. Why'd you end up going 8-4? And that's kind of, obviously that's what I think too. Like, people listen to us talk about the team and we'll say positive stuff, and they're like, I'm not buying into the hype and stuff, but here we are going 8-4, 4-4, average SEC team at worst.
Yeah, I really think if you take it game by game and you really sit there and think about should Arkansas win this game or not, I think you can really talk yourself into a lot, even more than 8. I really think I was sitting there with the A&M game, and I'm just like,
no question.
I was like, man, I think Arkansas probably could win this one. Ole Miss game is one I think I picked them to win. And I started looking at Ole Miss's schedule, which kind of drove me to that one. And I just think if you go game by game, you sit there and you're like, man, I kind of like Arkansas in this one. You go through it, but as we all know, this thing just never plays out that way. The team that's supposed to win, I'd say, wins about half the time in college football. It's just not a reliable formula. It's just the way we look at these things preseason just never end up playing out that way. And I think that Arkansas is in the same tier of good that a lot of SEC teams are, a lot of those teams in their same division. So I think that there's just not a ton of separation between a lot of these teams. Like A&M, Ole Miss, teams like that I mentioned. And so I just think it's unrealistic to expect Arkansas to win all of those close games or lose all those close games. I think that we're all just kind of trying to find the right balance of not picking them to go too high, not too low or anything. And so I have them losing to Auburn at home, which is one that I'm sure is going to upset a lot of people. But I also could very easily see them winning that game by 2 touchdowns and losing to Ole Miss on the road, or losing to A&M, or just so on and so forth. I think there's a lot of those kind of coin flip.
You're just trying to pick balance. I can look at everything, and I think you'd agree with me, Andrew, that Arkansas has a shot at all of it. To me, this is the best Arkansas team and the worst Florida team that will ever match up in Gainesville. At this point, to date, this is the best Arkansas team Arkansas has ever sent to Florida, in my opinion. They have a chance to win that one, I kind of did the same thing picking Auburn, and I kind of based it around at first, just kind of basing it around, Auburn has got all this time to prepare. Their schedule shapes up pretty well. They have a pretty, brutal slate of games. You'd like to get Auburn a month earlier, really. But I ended up going back and changing it. I actually picked Arkansas to lose Missouri, and everybody's, up in arms because I picked that one. But at the same time, I picked them to win games that they're not going to be favored to win also, just kind of get one you're not supposed to, lose one you're not supposed to. I picked Arkansas to beat Missouri each of the last 7 years, and 6 of those times they've lost to Missouri. So I just kind of changed the mojo up. But that's what we're kind of looking for, here is just some balance. But Arkansas can win. They can win every game on the schedule. Things might have to go right against Alabama and things like that. But, don't you agree that they've got a shot in every one of these games?
No, absolutely. And I mean, like, I think LSU is a team that people view very highly. And that's one of those, like, if that game were in Fayetteville, I would have a hard time not picking Arkansas to win it. I really think that there's not as much separation between those two teams as maybe some people think. But I also think with Arkansas fans, I think there's not as much separation between Arkansas and some of the teams that Arkansas fans seem to think that they should be beating every year. Like, I think the Mississippi State game, I had Arkansas winning that one handily, but it's like, weird stuff happens. I mean, we never know how these teams are really going to look when the season comes around. We don't know how the situations are going to play out, what injuries and so on and so forth. And so I think we approached it similar to, we have an idea of what we think Arkansas can do and kind of the level they stack up on in the SEC. And I just think that the SEC is always good every year, but it seems like the last couple of years of the transfer portal, all these teams have kind of risen to a very similar level.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think they're all going to beat up on each other, and that's just the way it's going to play out. And so I think Arkansas, like you said, has a chance to win a lot of these games. I mean, you can make an argument for all of them. And, I'm sure that's what some people are reading our predictions, and they're, so mad about this game and all this. But it's like, you can really take a lot of these and probably interchange them a little bit. But I agree with you that I think Arkansas is kind of in that. That's the tier I view them in, and kind of that 8-4 on the brink of 9-3. And I think if things go right, Arkansas could absolutely go on a run that not many people expect. And, I really think it's crazy looking, because I talk to people around here, and I get those same feels of 8-4, 7-5, 9-3. But Arkansas's win total on Bet Saracen is still 6.5. And so nationally, you kind of see what Arkansas is viewed as and kind of the level some think they are. And so we'll kind of just see when the season gets here, where Arkansas is able to rise to.
I found it interesting. We also kind of all were very similar with our score predictions. Aside from really the Missouri game, you have Arkansas just stomping Eli Drinkowitz and the Missouri Tigers 34-14, which I love to see that. But did you happen to see Eli Drinkowitz on Marty and McGee when we were waiting for the Vanderbilt game, when he goes through and identifies?
I don't think I watched, no.
He's talking about all the guitars they've got hanging on the wall, and he's like, "That's a Fender or whatever," all these different. And I don't know guitars, but somebody who did, and then he's like, you guys don't know nothing about these guitars, do you? Kind of like just talking like Eli Drinkwitz does. And but somebody on our board broke that down. He's like, he misidentified all three of these guitars, and he's acting like he's an expert, but he misidentified, according to this guy anyway. I just thought that was funny. But I saw your 34-14 pick over Missouri, and it's in Fayetteville. I was just kind of trying to change the mojo up. You know me, Andrew. You know how I think about things, like taking different paths, and maybe if I got a good parking spot all week at the university, that's a good sign that things are going to. If I go into the game and it's all green lights and it's nice and easy travel, then those are always good signs to me. Like, I know it's stupid, but it's just how I am.
Yeah, well, the beauty of what we do is we always reserve the right to change our mind. So when the season gets here, the week of the game predictions come out, you can pick Arkansas to beat Missouri 52-0, and then kind of cover your bases both ways.
Oh yeah,
and I'm probably going to do plenty of that throughout the season.
Absolutely.
I mean, I changed my mind 10 times before, like just doing it last night, changed my mind 10 times on some of these games, and I'm sure when the game rolls around a game week, I'm going to do the same thing. But another thing I try to do with my predictions is, everyone always picks close games. They think there's going to be 12 close games, and they're like, oh, well, Arkansas's probably 3 or 4 points better than this team, 3 or 4. And it's just like sometimes teams just show up and just bring it to someone, And I think of like Arkansas's game against Ole Miss last year. I feel like those kind of performances, it's going to happen with this Arkansas team where they're going to find a week where maybe they catch an opponent at the right time or whatever, and they just bring it to someone. Yep. But we saw the Liberty game. We saw the Auburn game the year before in 2021 where it's like, you just don't you don't put your best product out there on the field every week. And so it's not going to surprise me if any of these teams that I have them projected to lose to is able to kind of get the upper hand and bring it to them. So I just think that that's the beauty of this stuff, is that we make all these predictions, but in reality, there's just so much that can happen. And anyone who's trying to act like they really know what to expect from all these teams in the SEC is just lying to themselves.
Yep. All right, Andrew. Appreciate you.
I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to game week. See you next week.
Well, I'll see you today at practice.
Exactly.
All right. Later, brother. All right, everybody. That's Andrew Ellis. Again, you can follow Andrew at Andrew Ellis 24/7 on Twitter. If you haven't taken a moment to follow the guy, I mean, this is one of the up-and-comer media guys covering Razorback athletics. Does a great job for us. He's been with us for 2 years now, and his star is just rising. So make sure you go to Twitter and follow him, and you can read all of his content at HawgSports.com. Again, HAWG sports.com. What now? What do you want to talk about now? Andrew did some poll questions, also did 10 poll questions where you can go on the site and pick different things. Kerwin Bell is the head coach of Western Carolina. They are purple and I guess that would be gold. Purple and gold. He's been around a bit. He's been at Jacksonville, several 9-win seasons, 1, 2, 3, 4 9-win seasons, including one 10-win season in 2010, at Valdosta State. Valdosta State's always got a good program. Went 14-0, won the NCAA Division II championship at Valdosta State in 2018. 4-7 last year, 4-7 his first year in 2021, 6-5 last year. Now, what's notable about 6-5 at Western Carolina is they've never won more than 7 games all the way back to 1984 when they went 8-3. In 1983, they finished second in the 1AA playoffs. They finished as runners-up. They had 11-3 record, 1 tie. I guess they were doing ties still, but yeah, it was 83. Obviously, you do ties. What did they stop doing ties in 96? Something like that. So, Kerwin Bell. He's a pretty well-known guy, actually, in coaching circles. We don't know just a whole lot. Like, guys, I've looked around Twitter and stuff, and there's not any media really covering Western Carolina. They do mock press conferences because there's not really any media there. But they're going to do something for us Tuesday. We're going to have opportunity to speak with him, so look for that at HawgSports. But we will have an opportunity to speak with Kerwin Bell and talk a little bit about his team that he's bringing to Little Rock. Again, 12 o'clock game in Little Rock. It has been moved from 3 o'clock. I know that impacts. The best thing about Little Rock is the tailgating and then going into the stadium after that. Some of you guys don't even go into the stadium, and I know that impacts a lot of the fun by having it later. But it is going to be humid. Maybe don't schedule a early September game in Little Rock at 3 o'clock. In the future. Maybe wait a little bit later. It's obviously going to be hotter and more humid in Little Rock than it is up here. Not that it's so bad in Little Rock. I'm from Sheridan. I didn't even think it was that bad. When I go to Georgia, good Lord, the gnats and the humidity, I don't understand why anybody. There's great people in South Central Georgia, but man, brutal weather. Curtis is even doing, I'm just looking at some of our content. He recently did an Arkansas projected basketball depth chart. I guess he wanted to step out for a minute and do something different. If you want to do something different, you should consider trying out Ozarks Go. If you're disappointed with your internet service, I promise you, my personal experience is these guys have been fantastic. Fantastic from the day they came and installed it. The upload speed, all that. I've got my TVs hardwired in. I don't think my TVs can handle more than 1,000 megabits per second, but that's what they're pulling, $9.99 hardwired in. My computer wirelessly, it pulls probably about 600 megabits per second up and down. It's like that. This is streaming on it right now. We're streaming in high definition, and it's going smooth, isn't it? But we don't ever have any downtime. It's never like, Dad, why is the internet not working, my phone or whatever. 2:45. Speaking of daughter, getting ready to come home from school. That's what that alarm is. So, anyway, go try us out at Ozarks Go. You're going to be pleased you did. It's a great service. It's a great rate. It's a great company. It's local. They offer gigabit service. They offer all different kinds, but several tiers of speed. But their gigabit service is great for most people. Great, like out of this world for most people. If you're like me and you're always like, everybody in the house, everything's running on internet. You don't ever want to worry. You got your Alexas or your Apple HomePods all over the place. You're playing music all the time. You're on your phone, computer, need fast internet. Multibit. It's like 2,500 megabits. Like, even if you don't have the stuff, because I have like access points throughout my house also. And even if you don't have, and they're like graded for 1,000 megabits per second, but even those are optimized to another level. Even though they don't quite reach up to that, they're optimized to another level to where it's just like You know, and especially like I mentioned with my computer, you know, it's a Mac. It doesn't have any Ethernet ports. I can't hardwire it in. So it's always going to be Wi-Fi. And I mean, it hums. It's nice. Upload speed. This video, when I upload it, it's fast. Ozarks Go. Been very pleased with them. Again, I was a customer well before they ever decided to do any advertising with me. And when they reached out to me, I was like, man, I would love to tell everybody about Ozarks Go. It's just, it's a great service. Something I believe in. You know, I like to endorse companies I believe in. And they're local, just like us. All right, everybody. We've gone 45 minutes here. Should I check and see if you got any interesting questions? We can check. If I can find my page. There we go. All right, let's see if we got only good questions today. Landon Montgomery says, besides Bama, who could win the West this year? Arkansas and LSU? Texas A&M? Ole Miss? And that's it. Nick Headley says, what one guy are you most excited to see this year, excluding KJ or Rocket? I always like new guys. You know, we're obviously, you know, heavy team coverage, but we also dedicate a lot of our coverage to recruiting and transfer portal and all that stuff. I'm excited to see those receivers. I want to see, like, Isaac Teslaw, Andrew Armstrong. I don't know who's going to – I think it's possible that a different guy could lead them in catches, lead him in touchdowns, and lead him in receiving yards. I think it could be a different guy in all those categories. So really anxious, to see those guys. The wide receivers for me. That's what I'm anxious to see. I want to see this defensive line. Is it as good as I think it's going to be? Are they as good up front as I think they're going to be? And if we talked to probably like 40 players this fall camp, like 40 players, 10 coaches, 10 assistant coaches, 11 coaches total. 11 coaches, like 40 players. That's wild. That's a lot. Nick Headley says, I answered that, Nick. Doyle Bulger says, do you think they will rotate the players more this year with the improved depth? I think on the defensive line you're going to see a good rotation. Otherwise, you know, I think linebacker, I always say, you know, 60% of the snaps for your starting defensive line, 70% for your linebackers, 80% for your secondary. I don't think that's a bad strategy. Offense, obviously, you just rotate wide receivers and running backs mostly, tight ends. Landon says, I thought Crawford O-line would be a starter. Did something change? No, Braun's been pretty much since the spring. It's been Braun at right guard, and Crawford's been working right tackle, right guard. I think Crawford is their sixth man. You know, maybe it's Andrew Chamblee if they need a left tackle, but I think any other spot, unless it's center, it'll be Amari Wiggins most likely. But other than that, I think it's Takias is their next guy for. I think Takias for 3 spots, Amari Wiggins for center, Chamblee for left tackle. But Chamblee could obviously start game 1. I think he might, just because he's been in there so long with Devon Manuel's had 2 different issues, got better from one, then immediately had another one. Cody L. James says, subscribe to HawgSports and let's get the starters out early. Absolutely. And subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe. Give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe and hit the notifications bell on YouTube. You know you just keep forgetting to do it, so go ahead and do it real quick. Shane Harville says, I pictured Cam Ball being a starter the way everyone talked about him. Are you surprised him being second team? I'm not surprised with anything on the defensive line because I do think it's going to be a pretty steady rotation. I think when everything shakes out, I kind of thinking Cam Ball and Tank Booker. I think those are maybe the guys with the most talent. But I'm not surprised to see them go with like Torian Carter, you know, seniors and stuff. Eric Gregory, those guys are returning players from last year. I'm not terribly surprised to see that, no. Okay. David Gates says, got to disagree with you on never returning a kick. Sure, on average, you might get a few yards less, but you give up the opportunity to get a big return. Those big returns carry over and gives you extra momentum. Look at what USC just did. So I appreciate that, David, and you're certainly welcome to disagree. I look back at it, you know, like over time, over the years, how things have shaken out. You know, I didn't just like say that. I like did research. I look back at last year, and basically the way I broke it down is every single kick should not have been returned. A.J. Green averaged like 15 yards per return. Every single kick should not have been returned except for like 2, and it was just because of the way they were kicked. A lot of times sky kicks end up being done that way intentionally so the return king can get down in coverage. But most of the time, Arkansas hurt itself by not returning the kick, and sometimes hurt itself, pretty significantly. We're backed up pretty good. So a lot of things can go wrong when you decide to return a kick, not just returning the kick and, coming up short. Injuries often happen in kickoff return also, but also penalties, man. I can't count how many times that Arkansas pulled it out and they get, a holding penalty and they get backed up because of that on top of it. So unless you've got somebody, now I will say that, add that caveat, unless you've got somebody who's just ridiculously talented returning kicks, then I think you take the fair catch and you just take the ball to 25 every time. Every rule has been changed. I mean, going back to 2010, when they moved the kickoff from the 35 to the 30, or excuse me, from the 30 to the 35, so that they have more kicks going into the end zone. Next thing they do is outlaw wedge blocking in 2013. And then they add all this stuff with being able to fair catch it, move to 25. Every single thing they've done has been an effort to get that changed, to get people to stop doing it. It's just make it ceremonious. Ken Rita Smith says no sound. It's interesting because everybody else seems to be getting sound, Ken Rita. So I would say either unplug your headphones from your device that you don't have put in your ears or turn your volume up. Jerry Sanders says, what if I told you Jukebox Hero was more than a song? ESPN 30 for 30, how Sam Pittman brought the Razorbacks back to promised land. That might be an SEC storied, maybe not a 30 for 30. Pitter's reserved, but you can tell he's excited about this team. Can his team finally beat the odds? Says Landon Montgomery. Understand, people, that I've said 8-4, okay? I absolutely think this team can do better than that. I absolutely think they can win 10. I would be more surprised if they won 6. I would say I'd be more surprised to see them win 6 than I would to see them win 10. I think that you should take the over. If you're going to bet on 6.5, I would take the over. Don't come back at me and say, hey, you told me to do that, and it's up to you. But if you're on the Bet Saracen app, they offer 6.5 and 7.5 to win more money. 6.5 to me seems like pretty good bet, and that's regular season. Landon says he's tired of getting overhyped in August just to be disappointed by October. The thing that gives me pause about it, again, is just the transfer portal. This is just such a weird year with, right before college football playoffs, or right before all this transition. Now, some teams have already transitioned from conference and stuff, but all this massive turnover is going to happen with college football landscape, with all these teams leaving the Pac-12 and whatnot, and Oklahoma and Texas coming over to the SEC, and all these teams going into the Big Ten for the Pac-12, going to the Big 12 from the Pac-12, whatever they're calling it, Pac-4. So to me, it's just kind of like and there's just so many transfers now. Like, it dwarfs what we saw last year from transfer portal. Arkansas brought in 8 last year. This year they brought in, I think they have 17 now. I think they brought in 18 and ended up with 17. One guy quit. So it's just it's a weird year because the team looks so solid from a top to bottom standpoint in terms of depth and veteran. It's a veteran deep team. And most years you look at that and say 10 wins. If I'm looking at this most years in the past, you have a team like this 4 years ago, as I've said, I'm going, there's a 10-win team. There's a 10-win Arkansas team. And if you're a 10-win Arkansas team, you're, probably one of the top 12 or so teams in program history. But everybody else has the opportunity to reach in the transfer portal. Repeating myself still because we are leading up to it. I've been repeating myself for like at least 2.5 weeks now. Jonathan Mosley says, I'm not a fan of NIL, but because that's the direction of college football, when is Northwest Arkansas money going to start bringing in the best recruits in the country? They're starting to make some headway. I mean, they're bringing in some guys that you wouldn't see. I mean, like we talked before, there are 4 players in the top 247 that are committed to Arkansas right now, and I don't believe that's happened. Well, wait, not 247. I believe it's top 100. Yeah, it is. Let me think. Yep, there's 4 players in the top 24/7. Or excuse me, in the 24. There's 4. I'm getting to the end of the show, and I'm having a hard time talking. There's 4 players in the top 100 of the 24/7 sports ranking. Arkansas has never had, going back to 2010 when 24/7 started doing rankings, they've never had more than 1. That's notable. NIL has been good for Arkansas football. NIL and transfer portal have both been really positive things for Arkansas football. I don't think there's any question at all about that. Brad Hodges says, Trey, do you think KJ will run less this year? I think that's the plan for him, but, man, they're so dangerous when he does run. Christian Davis says, is Tank Booker going to be a good run stuffer this year? It looks like it to me. Carries about 350. It's kind of crazy to see him standing next to Ian Gerard, a dude that's 6'4", 350, standing next to 6'5", 394. John Smith says, Trey, my audio keeps cutting out. Is it your show? Me? I guess you're the second one. I haven't seen anybody else having an issue with audio. There's another one. Flying to Denver this weekend, this Friday, so I can call the Hogs on Saturday. Looking forward to seeing the new older system with Coach Enos back calling plays. It won't be the same new old because they definitely changed a lot of things. Do you see Dean or Spence having decent impact this season? I think they will. I think actually Spence and Sanford maybe at linebacker. And, linebackers play a lot on special teams too. Hey, Trey, what are your honest thoughts on Eli Drinkwitz? And now I did drop the phone earlier when I had Andrew on, so maybe that was part of the problem. Hey, Trey, what are your honest thoughts on Eli Drinkwitz, and what does Missouri always seem to have our number? I think Arkansas has a hard time getting up for that game because they just think they're supposed to win. That's why I picked them to lose this time. That's why I'm changing the mindset right off the bat. Arkansas are going to lose to Missouri. Yeah, that's my pick. After picking them 7 years in a row and seeing them lose 6 of those. So, my thoughts on Eli Drinkwitz, I don't mean to run anybody down. Him and I would probably not be friends. He just kind of comes off as a try-hard a little bit to me. Kind of thinks he's the smartest guy in the room and wants everybody to know it. I just don't really like his face. 13-0 national championship. I just said I don't like to run people down. I just did everything. Rodney Winkler says 13-0 national championship. TJ Lewis says, I say 7 wins for the season, depending if Arkansas can go 4-0 in September. If we go 4-0 in September, I'll have to say 8 wins, maybe 9, just to have to wait and see any major changes have been made. Only time will tell. Tired of the same excuses over and over. Time for a win-win. There's a lot of different excuses, though. Does McAdoo get a medical red shirt? Yeah, he'll be able to medical. Okay. A lot of questions about Eli Drinkwitz. Chris Corley says high school games started late because of the heat. Says it's a wasted experience in Little Rock, maybe. Hogs going to win a national championship. A lot of national championship. Might have a little loose cord here, guys. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe that's what it was. Shane Harville says he hadn't had any issues with the audio. Some of you guys need to get Ozarks Go on the other end because we are streaming in 1080. So a little bit different. All right, everybody. I want to thank you for joining me. If you haven't signed up at HawgSports, take a moment to do so. I really like the theme of the day is the YouTube channel. Just take a moment and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You're going to watch the show, right? I know a lot of you are watching on Facebook right now, and I appreciate you being followers of the Facebook page with 90,000 other Razorback fans. But if you haven't taken a moment, then I would go ahead and do that. For those of you who are interested in Ozarks Go, be sure to go to ozarksgo.net/HAWG, ozarksgo.net/hog, 479-684-4900 for Ozarks Go. Great internet. They're reaching out further in Northwest Arkansas. I think they've got their service out in Rogers now. If you get Ozarks Electric, then you probably, if that's an option for you, then you probably be able to get Ozarks Go as well. Super pleased. Wouldn't tell you if I didn't believe that. All right, everybody. We'll be back with you guys on Thursday for the primer, Saturday for the walk and talk. I want to thank Danny West for joining us, Andrew Ellis as well. Appreciate all you guys for hopping in, all of our subscribers out there, of course. And we'll be back with you guys soon. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com. And we'll catch you next time.